This session contains some fun things, and I love the name of toboggan, and for whatever reason, it also reflects all my learnings, bugs whatsoever, and now it's Python. So, but I keep you excited. And so who I am, what's inside the box, a very short introduction to Python and PySpark, and also maybe that is also haunting me is how leverage the Azure Key Vault to keep my secrets safe. And of course, there's some demo time. So this is the session. And we are focusing on a couple of things. Since the advent of Fabric, we have much more capabilities, not this fancy things like data science alone, but also we have more capabilities regarding data engineering tasks. And so there's a new flavor of dataflows Gen 2. And from a personal experience, I can tell you that dataflows Gen 2 is, even if I build them the same, they are running smoother, my personal experience. But also we have data pipelines and notebooks. So my favorite thingy though for doing data engineering things is using notebooks. And in a couple of seconds, I will tell you why these are my favorite things, why I love them, or why I love coding for data engineering tasks. But of course, there's also a price, as always, that we have to pay when we are using Python and we are not alone. So, and most probably we will not be alone if we are embarking the ship called Fabric. So this is about me, some words. I am a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. My contributions have been accepted, have been considered worthy, and I got renewed this time as well. When I'm talking about data engineering, I can somewhat be excited about coding with Python, but also love DAX because it helps a lot to harvest some insights that maybe is buried in your shape data. And I wrote a book about DAX together with my friend Phil Seamark. And if you want to get in touch, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter or things like that. And currently I'm working as a solution architect at Munich Re. Munich Re is a reinsurance company, and there I'm focusing on Microsoft Fabric and, of course, Power BI. So with that said, I promised a very short introduction to Python and PySpark. So what is Python? I'm not sure if you are aware of Python, if you are never touched Python and maybe now considering switching to Python because you have some experience with Power Queries M or whatsoever. So this is taken from Welcome to Python, from the Welcome to Python page. It tells me that it's a programming language that lets me work more quickly and integrate my systems more effectively. I would say, yeah, this is true. And not sure if you already are working with Microsoft Fabric using data pipelines or data flows Gen 2 to ingest your data into whatever item, be it a lakehouse or a warehouse, to create your semantic model, maybe now with direct lake connection mode, maybe you will encounter PySpark. And or some of the data engine, data processing in Fabric is based on Apache Spark. So if we are considering, or if you are using, or as I am using a lakehouse, then data processing is happening with Spark. So Spark is a compute framework that provides a lot of large computing power to process large amounts of data. To talk to Apache Spark, a Python library called PySpark is available. So this means I can, if I'm somewhat familiar with Python, I have no difficulties, at least not from a programmatically point of view, to use PySpark. When talking about PySpark, there is a term that is really often used, and this term is called a data frame. A data frame is something that looks like a table. Also, in the introduction we have about Fabric, we have heard that now natively the components that are forming Fabric are able to read and write data tables. And so this is also something that PySpark handles quite well, is interacting with data tables. So a data frame, a data table, everything looks like a table. And if you are familiar with Python or just started your journey, then probably you have heard about this amazing package called Pandas. Pandas helps us a lot if we are transforming data, shaping data, compute stuff. And also Pandas comes with a data object called data frame. So there's two data frames right now, a PySpark data frame and a Pandas data frame. Even if it's the same word, these are not the same objects. If you have a Pandas data frame and you want to create a data table from your Pandas data frame, this Pandas data frame has to be converted first to a PySpark data frame, and then it can be written as a data table. So this is a little bit more complex behind the scenes than converting a string into a date or things like that. Because often data frames contain a lot of data. Converting data frames from one object to another can require some larger amounts of RAM, because everything is more or less happening in RAM. So if you're familiar with Pandas and not that familiar with PySpark, keep this in mind that you have to convert your Pandas data frame to PySpark. This is one of the reasons why I switched completely to PySpark. This is not a great of a loss because I never was a Pandas expert. So why I love using Python and notebooks. So basically Python spares me to compile anything. I do not have to create a DLL. So I just have a file that I basically can create with any text editor. Then I need some interpreter that is able to has to understand what I coded into my file. Hopefully this is executable Python script. And it runs. Basically, my Python code runs everywhere, not just on my Windows machine. So currently I'm using a MacBook. Python runs on Mac, Windows. The code is basically the same without any ado, without recompiling, things like that. Nevertheless, if you're familiar with Python and are checking what Python version currently is used in combination with the Microsoft Fabric runtimes, you will realize the current runtimes, Spark runtimes, are using Python 3.10, and maybe you are using a little newer version like 3.12 or things like that. So with this said, there's also some kind of package management involved, especially if you want to use a specific version of a package. This is can sometimes be difficult, because this is also something that I try to avoid. I take what it's there, what's coming with Fabric. If I need specific packages, I embark on creating an environment in my Fabric thingy so that I do not have to do this much often. What I also love about using Fabric for my Python, I do not have to take care about any IDE where I can create my Python code or things like that, because there are the inbuilt notebooks, and we will see this in a bit. I love notebooks a lot for many reasons. Why I love to use Python for data engineering tasks is I am in full control of any single bit. So when I'm using dataflows Gen 2 or dataflows previously, then it was quite simple, clicky, clicky, draggy, droppy, as you might know this phrase also. It's much, much more simple. But this easiness of using a tooling like dataflows comes with a price. And this price is I let control other people, the inventors of the data flow, to do the data processing. Meaning there has my M code has to be translated into something that might be not as efficient as my code, because I can control whatever I'm doing. Using PySpark means it's closer to Spark than data flows are close to my data sources or my data that is residing in a data table. From my personal experience, PySpark is faster than data pipelines and Dataflow Gen 2. And here's also a little hint that PySpark data frame is not the same as a Pandas data frame. Faster is always better most of the time. So if your team of data engineers if you're the only data engineer, maybe then you do not have to take care if you are using PySpark or data flows. But if there are more data engineers and maybe your colleagues are not familiar with PySpark, and processing is faster, yes, but instead of 15 seconds using data flows, your PySpark code is running in 2 seconds. Maybe then these 13 seconds are not that important as that everyone in the team is able to maintain, enhance, or even fix your data processing task. So this is also something you have to keep in mind. Data tables support an upsert. Yes, of course, we can do incremental refresh using dataflows Gen 2, but this is not an upsert. Upsert means I just load changed chunks of data, and then I'm updating existing data and adding new data. This means upsert, update, insert. So with Dataflow Gen 2, I'm only, at the current moment, I'm only able to append new data to an existing set of data. And finally, I'm able to share my notebooks easily. So within Fabric, I'm able to export my notebook as a Jupyter. Then this is in Git, and you can use my notebook, so if you want. So these are the things why I love this. And when I started learning Python, I found this. It's the Zen of Python, and it's a couple of simple phrases. Yes, of course, beautiful is better than ugly. And explicit is better than implicit, whatever this means. I really love that because it's not only, I think this Zen of Python can be used for many other things. I consider myself being quite good with DAX, and sometimes I do not use all the arguments in specific DAX functions because they are optional. Then colleagues who are reading my DAX statements are wondering why this is happening, because there's an implicit thing happening because I did not state the obvious, meaning I do not write out optional arguments. So for this reason, I think explicit is better than implicit. Of course, yes. And sparse is better than dense. Oh, yes, this is also valid for DAX. So there was the last week or this week, Chris Webb blogged about why it's not a good idea to have a measure in DAX using or returning a zero value. And for this reason, so I think this Zen of Python can be used for many things. But I stumbled across these little sentences when I started learning Python. So what I'm presenting is the solution, and for this reason I will change to this is what the code is about and what I'm going to present. Hopefully I will find it. I do not. Sorry for that. So this is my GitHub repo that holds the notebooks that I'm using a little bit for the demo things. On the slides, you will find exactly this, a link that will get you to this public repo. And what I'm doing with this solution is I'm extracting tenant settings using Python notebooks or Fabric notebooks, store these notebooks inside a lakehouse. And there's also some kind of a Power BI report involved. So this is what we are seeing a little bit more in more detail. This as well. And there's, of course, a semantic model. Of course, it's using the direct leg mode right now. So, and here are two notebooks that I will cover in a couple of seconds. It's getting data, meaning retrieving the tenant settings from my tenant right now. And for this reason, if we will have the time to see some of the results, then do not wonder, this is my personal tenant and not the tenant of Munich Re. So settings might be a little bit different, what you will see if you find the time to look at the Power BI report. And then data is transformed. I talked to this also, why I'm doing this and things like that. And there's also some data flow involved because also an Excel source is involved in regarding this solution, but we will not talk about Excel as a data source in this session. What I also like a lot is I can code using notebooks, and then I can orchestrate these notebooks using a pipeline. And this also helps me a lot. I consider this quite fast, and it's good. So, and this is what this solution is about. And now, oops, yes, demo time almost. So because of the name of this conference, I also found this little. This is a video, for whatever reason it's currently not playing. Why isn't that playing right now? So there's a ferry in Munich, and in this ferry, I have to check why this is not working. So I hit play, and now you see this little people who are embarking a conveyor belt, and this, let's say this ferry ride is called Toboggan at the ferries in Munich. And if you find some time watching this video, 10 minutes, you will see epic fails, but also epic heroes. And this is exactly my learning experience when I started learning Python or when I started learning DAX. So sometimes it works, sometimes it fails. So I love this incident or coincidence with the name of this thing and this conference a lot. And now I will also highlight some concepts before we go to the demo, to the Python code. And this is importing a package. Because Python has a lot of a package is an extension that enables us, the Python programmers, using different things. And for example, PySpark is a package. And I have to import these packages to get these additional functionality or these extensions. We will see this. And also some words about user-defined functions. As always, programming languages have the capability to create functions, to make code, to encapsulate code and then reuse this function at various places. Meaning, I just have to change the code once. This is exactly the same when we are using user-defined functions, but we have to be careful when we are using these user-defined functions inside data frame manipulation or projection. Projection means select something from delta table is called a projection because then user-defined function can add a performance penalty. And also something that is called message changing. We will see this. And I have no idea what orchestrate node boost is. I guess this is it should be called notebooks. Excuse the typo. I will, after this presentation, I will change this and upload it to the Git repo. I can use data pipelines. I love that a lot. But I can also use run multiple. Run multiple is, let's say, a Spark utility that comes with Microsoft Fabric utilities, and it's Python code that tells me how to run or how to orchestrate my data pipeline. And yes, I love using Python, but for now I'm using pipelines to orchestrate because I consider it more simple, more powerful in the sense of what should happen if something fails or things like that. For this reason, currently I'm using pipelines instead of run multiple. But as always, there are options. So choose whatever fits your needs best. So this is something, the vault that holds our keys, that I come to after my little demo. And for this reason, now I'm going to my Python notebooks or my Python Fabric thingy. So, so this is a pipeline that I just run 20 minutes ago or before I started this session. And basically it's using a notebook, fetching data from my tenant settings, and then data is transformed. Risk types are added that are currently in an Excel file, and then the semantic model is refreshed. So, and now if I'm also go to this Power BI report that is leveraging this, whoops, you will see, so my personal setting, my personal tenant, the last time I run this get tenant settings was the 2nd of June, and now I have the 13th of July, and I run this notebook, and now I realize that since then 2 new tenant settings have arrived. And of course, tenant settings enable new capabilities. This is the cool thing about tenant settings. Most of the time, they enable cool new things, but we always have to consider, do we have to enable these settings or not, or whatever. Especially, I'm not sure if you are able to read this. For this reason, a second. Here we go. The first one, allow service principals user use write admin APIs. Until then, I do not exactly know when this tenant setting has arrived because there's a gap of more than a month. Service principals or the admin APIs are currently only allowed to read from the complete tenant. This is what admin APIs allow. But now I can allow service principals to write something. And this has to be taken into account for a couple of reasons. And this is why I'm doing this. At Munich Re, we are tracking these standing settings to come up with actions. And we are doing this using notebooks. And here we have notebooks. I'm not sure if you're familiar with notebooks, Python in combination with Fabric or not. This is a notebook. The gray parts are cells, and there's a lot of text or some text involved, and this text around cells can be used as headers, can be used as documentation and things like that. And the executable cells with some combination of text is considered a notebook. And this is really cool. And do not forget to show the view menu to your audience. I do not know how you start learning new things. Sometimes when I embark on a new ship, I start learning and I have something running, and then I go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then at some point in time, I do not know how to do the simplest of tasks. So I have this code right here, and now I'm wondering how can I do this? Yeah. So how can I command a block of lines? How do I do that? And this is something that is so obvious that, or not obvious. And for this reason, when you start working with Fabric notebooks, visit this view button. Because here you see the table of contents. So what's that? And table of contents shows me all the headers. Do not forget this one, the variables. And when I click here, all the imports, prepare some of the authentication, get the data and things like that. You can navigate through this. And this is something that also can take some time because you start, it works, and then you go deeper. Sometimes this is something that I observe, and then I got frustrated because I never ever hit view, and then I see keyboard shortcuts. I was Googling, Binging how to do this, and that's it. So if you start, go here and explore what all these possibilities are about. So nevertheless, a notebook is attached to a lakehouse. A lakehouse is inside a workspace, and this workspace has to be assigned to a capacity that allows you to do these fabric thingies, create, execute workloads. A single lakehouse has tables and also has files. And now if you have a solution, most likely will have more than one notebook. and then you want to use this notebook or provide some variables to all of the notebooks. How can you do that? Each notebook has its local resources. So meaning these are in this Explorer here, these are the local resources of this notebook. Okay, I can easily put this file containing my into this local folder. But if there are more notebooks, then I have to do this and everything. But there's also this default lakehouse. And here there is also a folder structure, and this folder structure has something. Oh, it's in the files section. So in the files section of this lakehouse, I placed a little JSON file. And this little JSON file is containing certain variables, my tenant ID, whatever is needed. And if I'm going here, I have to run it, sorry for that. Then these variables are read, and I do not have, I can add more variables to this single JSON file. So what I'm telling right now is it's always a good idea to get familiar with how to read something simple like a JSON file, because it contains variables or values for variables that you want to use throughout your code. So reading and writing files is also something that you should be acquainted with, because it helps a lot. It's not just how to do an upsert with delta tables or applying the coolest ever data science methods to your data. It's also sometimes the simple things that keeps us or blocks us because we do not know how to read this. And this is, now it's done almost. My session, my Spark session was disabled or committed, and I had to rerun my Spark session. And now if I'm looking at this, now if I have, so it's also a good idea to, it's also a good command set. It's also a good idea to know how you can execute marked what how to execute marked text or marked, it's not written properly. So, and it's a command, and I'm not able to do this. Fun. Sorry for that. So now what's going on? It's correct. I'm so sorry. So now this is my client ID. So it's also a good idea to know how to run a cell using hotkeys, things like that, or just that. So here I'm reading nothing fancy. It's just reading a JSON file, right? Because this JSON file contains my variables. So here we have these import packages. So what is, there are different methods. because let's say a given package, like this package called Azure Identity, maintained, developed, shared by Microsoft, is a package that contains certain functions methods like client secret credential. So I can make this function available by doing this. Like so. So this means import all the things available in the package Azure Identity. Then if my notebook is growing and growing and gets more and more complex, then maybe at a given point in time, we do not know or want to know, we want to know but do not know where this client secret credential function is coming from, meaning what package. And for this reason, I can do it like so. Then I import only client secret credential. I can do it also like this. And this is personally, this is my favorite, is doing is like this. Like this meaning adding something that tells me I use Azure Identity and provide a shortcut or an abbreviation to Azure to the package identity. And if I'm doing this right now, all these things are imported right here. So, and doing this done, I come to this back again. Just want to make sure that the important part is working. So here I'm referencing this package AI, Azure Identity, and use the client secret credential function or method. And then you see I have a couple of parameters and variables, and these variables are, except one, are exactly coming from here, my tenant ID, the client ID, and things like that. So I do not have to do this. I do this to avoid. So this is how I ingest values into my code using this little JSON. And I'm also, let's say, a little bit hesitant to, whenever I have to connect to somewhere, to other systems, I love to, or I hate this when I see the password of someone in the code. And I'm not aware, so some time ago, I was doing this I had to learn Azure Key Vault because Azure Key Vault allows me to put my secret, the password, at a safe place. Then I can configure access to this Key Vault, but only for people who are able to read something that is called a secret. A secret is a name of the secret, but it's not the password. So, and with this using Key Vault, I'm completely safe to do this. And now I'm seeing that I am out of time already. I'm really sorry for that. I just want to go to something different. Sorry for that. Where my second notebook? So I have data. I read data from the tenant settings, from the Power BI service or Fabric service. Then I used the Key Vault to get access to this. Do the job, Fabric, tenant settings, get data. There's something that I also love about this get data. Sorry. This guy. Transform data. Makes sense. And once again, importing, prepare tables. Always, I recommend use schemas beforehand. And here we are somewhere. Where is it? So here is an example of how I use the merge of delta tables, adding. So I want to be able to track how many tenant settings have been added in a given time, what has changed, what tenant settings have gone. And for this reason, so also tenant settings are leaving, the Fabric settings are leaving the admin portal. So this happens as well. And for this reason, I'm coming back right to my presentation. I recommend that you get yourself familiar with the Azure Key Vault, how it works. Maybe you do not have to do it on your own because there's someone in your organization who is managing this for you somehow. But it helps to keep your code and password safe. Here are some slides how it works. Yes, how it works. Some readings. Beginner's Guide Python, Apache Spark Runtime. Here you will find what runtimes are currently available. There are different Fabric runtimes because they are supporting different Spark versions, and so on and so on. And this said, thank you very much.